The mop handle felt heavier than any boxing glove Ronan Hale had ever worn. At 39, he'd learned that some fights happen long after you leave the ring. Iron Fist Gym buzzed with evening energy as Kaya Monroe corrected her students' footwork, her voice cutting through the noise with fierce authority. "Your elbow drops too low when you block that left hook." Ronan muttered under his breath as he mopped near the ring. Kaya heard him. So did half the gym. "I'm sorry, what?" She turned slowly, eyes flashing. "Did the janitor just try to coach me on boxing?" For 3 years, Ronan had pushed his cart through Iron Fist Gym, cleaning up after other people's dreams while his own crumbled silently in his calloused hands. Each night he would pause at the trophy case, just for a heartbeat, his fingers unconsciously tracing the outline of keys that once opened doors to greatness, now only unlocking janitors' closets. His broad shoulders, still powerful beneath the faded uniform, carried more than industrial supplies. They bore the crushing weight of a father's love that had willingly sacrificed everything. The fluorescent lights cast unforgiving shadows across his face, illuminating every line etched by sleepless vigils in sterile hospital corridors. His hands, those same hands that had once danced with precision through championship combinations, now trembled slightly as he wrung dirty mop water, each squeeze a small surrender to a life he'd never imagined choosing. The calluses told the story of his transformation, from knuckles that had kissed victory to palms worn raw by cleaning supplies, from hands that held championship belts to fingers that now counted pills and folded hospital bills with methodical desperation. At 6'2", he moved through the gym like a ghost haunting his former self. His footwork remained unconsciously perfect, the subtle pivot when avoiding equipment, the balanced stance even while scrubbing floors, muscle memory that refused to die even as his dreams had. Sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, his shadow would still throw phantom punches against the wall, his body betraying the fighter that still lived beneath the janitor's facade. The gym members barely noticed him, just another invisible figure maintaining their space. But there were moments when muscle memory betrayed him. Watching a fighter telegraph a punch or drop their guard, his body would tense with the instinct to correct, to teach, to share knowledge that had once made him a name worth knowing in Chicago's boxing circles. The standoff began with misunderstanding spiraling beyond control. Kaya's face flushed, not from exertion but from the public challenge to her authority. In a gym where she'd fought for every ounce of respect, this moment felt like everything balanced on a knife's edge. "You want to give me boxing advice?" Kaya stepped closer, her voice rising. "Let me guess, you watch a lot of fights on TV." Ronan set down his mop with the deliberate care of a man who had learned to control every movement, every emotion. His shoulders squared, not with the janitor's defeated slouch, but with the unconscious pride of a champion who had never truly forgotten how to stand tall. When he straightened to his full height, something shifted in the very air around him. His grey eyes, dulled by years of suppressed dreams, suddenly blazed with the cold fire that had once intimidated opponents across 3 weight divisions. "No," he said quietly, his voice carrying the kind of steel-wrapped velvet that had once commanded respect in the bloodiest rings of Chicago. "I don't watch fights on TV." The pause that followed was pregnant with unspoken history. His hands, scarred from countless battles, gentle from countless bedtime stories, hung loose at his sides in a deceptively casual stance that every real fighter in the room recognized as the calm before devastation. "Then what makes you think you know better than a certified coach?" Kaya challenged, but her voice had lost confidence. Something about how Ronan moved, how his shoulders squared into a fighter's ready position, made her instincts whisper warnings. Tommy, a heavyweight, stepped forward grinning. "Why don't you two settle this the old-fashioned way? 3 rounds, light sparring." Kaya felt the trap closing. Refuse and look weak, or fight a man twice her size with everything to lose. "Fine," she heard herself say. 3 minutes. If you can last without ending up on your back, I'll admit you might know something." The transformation began not with his clothes, but with his soul. As Ronan peeled away the coveralls, each layer revealed not just muscle, but the careful architecture of a man who had built himself into a weapon, then deliberately broken himself down to become a shield for his son. His shoulders, freed from the humble costume of servitude, rolled back with the unconscious arrogance of someone who had once made grown men weep with their bare hands. When he climbed through the ropes, the ring seemed to recognize him, the canvas yielding slightly under feet that knew exactly how much pressure to apply, where to plant, how to pivot with lethal efficiency. His movements shed 3 years of careful invisibility like a snake discarding dead skin. This wasn't the cautious shuffle of a maintenance worker. This was the predatory grace of a hunter who had spent a lifetime learning to kill dreams and was now being asked to resurrect his own. The way he tested the ropes wasn't random. It was ritual, muscle memory so deep it bypassed conscious thought. His fingers traced the turnbuckles with the familiarity of a pianist finding middle C, his body automatically adjusting to the subtle give of canvas that would either cradle victory or cushion defeat. Every gesture screamed professional, from the unconscious way he rolled his neck to the precise angle at which he held his hands. As they met at center ring, Kaya looked up into eyes that held the weight of 1,000 small deaths. There was no anger there, no masculine pride wounded by her challenge. Instead, she saw something infinitely more terrifying, the patient sorrow of a father who had buried his own dreams so deeply that resurrection required nothing less than excavation of his soul. His gloves touched hers with the gentle reverence of a man who had learned that the most profound violence often began with the softest caress. In that moment, Ronan's face transformed. The carefully maintained mask of the invisible worker crumbled, revealing the gladiator beneath, carved from marble and tempered in fire, softened only by love for a child who would never know the magnitude of what his father had sacrificed. The bell rang, and the lesson began. Kaya came out aggressive, peppering Ronan with quick jabs. For 30 seconds, it looked like everyone expected, a skilled coach overwhelming an untrained opponent. But Ronan wasn't there when her punches arrived. He moved like smoke, letting shots whistle past by millimeters, countering with single shots that found their mark through perfect timing rather than power. The crowd's chatter died as they realized this wasn't the mismatch they'd expected. They were witnessing the difference between someone who had learned boxing and someone who had lived it. Ronan controlled distance with ease, reading her intentions before she formed them, demonstrating ability without causing damage. Halfway through, Kaya abandoned her game plan and threw everything. Left hook to body, right hand upstairs, all-or-nothing commitment. Ronan sidestepped the entire combination with fluid movement that looked like choreography. As she stumbled from missed momentum, he stepped back to give her recovery space. Patient, almost kind. When Tommy called time, Ronan's transformation reversed itself with heartbreaking speed. The champion's bearing melted away, shoulders rounding back into the protective hunch of a man who carried the world's weight. His hands, which moments before had moved with surgical precision, now trembled slightly as he pulled off the borrowed gloves, not from exhaustion, but from the emotional whiplash of touching his abandoned greatness. He looked around the silent gym as if seeing it for the first time, his eyes drinking in the faces that stared back with new understanding. For 3 years, these people had seen right through him. Now they saw him too clearly, and the exposure felt like standing naked in winter wind. His jaw clenched once, a micro-expression of a man swallowing a scream, before he forced the gentle smile that had become his armor back into place. "Who are you?" Kaya asked, accepting his handshake. Ronan's smile carried the weight of Atlas, gentle but unbreakably sad. It was the same smile he wore when Ethan asked why other kids had two parents, the same careful expression he'd perfected during those first terrible months when the diagnosis had shattered their world into before and after. His eyes held depths that boxing had carved, but fatherhood had filled, pools of sacrifice so profound they seemed to bend light around them. Just someone who used to know something about boxing, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile peace he'd built from the rubble of his former life. A long time ago. The words fell between them like stones dropped into still water, each syllable rippling with the weight of everything he wasn't saying, about midnight feedings and medical bills, about choosing between personal glory and a child's chance at tomorrow. The revelation unfolded slowly. Tony Marcelli, training fighters since before the neighborhood gentrified, studied Ronan's face with puzzle-solving intensity. "I knew I recognized something," Tony muttered loud enough for others to hear. "The footwork, the way he slipped those punches. Sweet Jesus, you're Roman Hale." The name hit like a shockwave. Roman the Ghost Hale, the fighter destined for greatness before disappearing just as he approached his biggest opportunities. The boxer who had vanished so completely that people assumed catastrophic injury or scandal had ended everything. "You're Roman Hale," Kaya whispered. "You were ranked 3rd in the world. You were supposed to fight for the title." Ronan began packing supplies with methodical care. That was a long time ago. Different life, different priorities. Phones came out as people searched for old footage. Within minutes, they watched grainy videos of a younger Ronan dismantling ranked opponents with clinical precision that made the sport look easy. "What happened?" Tommy asked, confused why someone with that talent would walk away when the sport was waiting to crown him. "You were right there. Why'd you quit?" Ronan's hands stilled completely on his cleaning supplies, the practiced efficiency of his movements grinding to a halt, as if the question had short-circuited his carefully maintained programming. For a moment that stretched like eternity, something raw and unguarded flickered across his features, the ghost of ambition, the phantom pain of dreams deferred. His knuckles whitened as they gripped the mop handle, and for one terrifying instant, everyone watching could see the caged champion rattling against the bars of responsibility he'd welded around himself. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the terrible quiet of a man who had learned to suffocate his own screams. "Sometimes boxing isn't the most important fight you have to win." Each word was carefully measured, precisely weighted, like a fighter choosing exactly where to place each punch for maximum impact. His grey eyes found his watch, that practical, unadorned timepiece that marked not the rounds of his former glory, but the medication schedules and appointment times that governed his real life now. The gesture was pure reflex, the automatic movement of a man whose entire existence had been restructured around someone else's needs. But in that simple glance at his watch, everyone present could read the whole story. A father checking the time not because he was bored, but because somewhere a small boy was counting the minutes until Daddy came home. As Ronan headed toward the exit, each step was a masterclass in controlled desperation. His stride maintained the careful rhythm of a man walking away from temptation, but his shoulders betrayed him. They pulled taut with the effort of not looking back, of not letting his body language scream the truth that his mouth refused to speak. His cleaning cart rattled slightly, the only sound betraying the tremor in hands that had once been rock-steady under the brightest lights and heaviest pressure. Kaya's pursuit felt like destiny chasing down a man who had spent 3 years learning to run from his own reflection. When she called his name, Ronan's spine straightened with an almost audible snap, not the posture of someone caught, but of a soldier hearing his true rank called for the first time in years. Wait. The word hit him like a physical blow, stopping him mid-stride. His cart continued forward for another foot, momentum carrying it beyond his frozen form, like his dreams had once carried him beyond his circumstances. For several heartbeats, he stood perfectly still, a statue of a man caught between two worlds, the one where he was invisible and indispensable, and the one where he had been legendary and lost. Ronan stopped but didn't turn immediately. I don't train fighters anymore. Haven't for 3 years. I'm not the same person in those videos. But you could be, Kaya pressed. For her. Maya has real talent, but she needs someone who understands the sport at your level. What you showed me doesn't just disappear. I have responsibilities, a son who needs me. I can't make the commitment training requires. Then don't, Kaya said quickly. Just help when you can. Watch her train, give pointers, help her be better than both of us. The offer hung like a bridge across 3 years of careful distance. Everyone held their breath, understanding they witnessed a moment that could change everything. Bring her tomorrow night, he said finally, words rough from long storage. After hours, when it's quiet. I'll see what she's working with, but I'm not promising anything beyond that. The next evening, Maya Chen arrived with nervous energy of someone sensing opportunity. At 22, she possessed raw athletic ability that made coaches dream, but gaps in technique became obvious under pressure. When Ronan arrived in simple training clothes, Maya's reaction was immediate. Even without knowing his history, she recognized something in how he moved. Unconscious confidence of someone who had mastered their craft completely. Roman Hale, Kaya said simply, watching recognition dawn in Maya's eyes. The next 2 hours became a master class in understanding versus teaching boxing. Ronan's observations came in small doses, a stance suggestion, a breathing question, minor adjustments that seemed insignificant until their cumulative effect became obvious. Don't think about avoiding the punch, he said during defensive drills. Think about being where the punch isn't going to be. It sounded like nonsense, but as Maya internalized the concept, her movement became fluid, natural. By session's end, Maya moved differently, small improvements suggesting vast potential. More importantly, she approached boxing differently, as conversation between minds and bodies operating deeper than conscious strategy. You've got good instincts, Ronan told her, praise carrying genuine assessment weight. Technical stuff, conditioning, game planning, that's manageable with time. But instincts, feeling what's happening instead of just seeing it, you can't teach that. Will you work with me? Maya asked directly. Ronan glanced at Kaya, expression revealing internal struggle between competing obligations. I have limitations, responsibilities that come first. But maybe we can figure something out. The complications began immediately. The morning after training, Ronan's phone buzzed with Children's Memorial Hospital, the number memorized through repetition, always making his stomach clench. Mr. Hale, Dr. Patterson, we need to move up Ethan's next treatment cycle. His white cell count is dropping faster than we'd like. The treatment required 3 consecutive hospital days, while 8-year-old Ethan received IV medications keeping his condition stable. It meant time off work, rearranging routine, focusing entirely on the brave boy who had become his universe's center. Dad, are you okay? Ethan asked that evening during homework that seemed impossibly complex for someone fighting adult battles. Chemotherapy had left him thin and pale, but his eyes remained bright with intelligence. Just tired, buddy, Ronan replied, helping with math while calculating the coming week's logistics. How are you feeling about hospital visits? I'm okay with it, Ethan said with matter-of-fact acceptance children develop when medical treatments become routine. But you seem different lately, more like you used to be before Mom left. The observation hit harder than any punch. Ethan was right. Something had awakened during that sparring session, some long dormant part of himself that boxing had always expressed better than words. During the second hospital day, Kaya appeared in the doorway with coffee and nervous energy. "I hope you don't mind. I wanted to check on you, maybe talk about Maya's training schedule." Ethan's reaction was immediate and curious. "Are you Dad's friend from the gym?" "I'm Kaya. Your dad has been helping me train a fighter for important competition." The conversation revealed complexity none had anticipated. Ethan was fascinated that his father, known primarily as caretaker and provider, had once been successful in an exciting, dangerous world. Kaya began understanding the responsibility weight that drove Ronan from boxing. "Dad was really famous?" Ethan asked, eyes lighting up. "Like people knew his name?" "Very famous," Kaya confirmed, showing old fight footage. "He was one of the world's best fighters." Ronan watched his son watch him, seeing himself through Ethan's eyes for the first time in years. The man in videos seemed like a stranger, confident, hungry, driven by ambitions impossibly distant from the careful, protective life built around his son's illness. Maya appeared in the doorway, having tracked them down through persistence. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to ask, are you going to help me get ready for Golden Gloves?" The question challenged the careful balance Ronan maintained for 3 years. Here was boxing's future needing guidance he could provide. Here was his past in skills that couldn't be easily replaced. Here was his present in the boy whose survival required every sacrifice. "Dad," Ethan said quietly, with wisdom's serious illness forces on children. "What if you could do both? What if helping her could be part of helping me? You're always worried about money for treatments." Ethan continued, matter-of-factly. "And you're sad when you think I'm not looking. Maybe if you helped her win, you could do what makes you happy and help us too." Maya nodded slowly, understanding the economics driving Ronan's choices. "Good fighters make very good money, and good trainers usually get a percentage." The question opened doors locked for 3 years. "Medical bills?" Ronan said simply. "Insurance doesn't cover everything, and training doesn't pay enough to support a sick child. I needed steady income, regular hours, benefits that wouldn't disappear if I got injured." Kaya leaned forward, recognizing opportunity to solve multiple problems. "Maya's good enough to win Golden Gloves with right coaching. Regional champions get prize money and promoter attention. A good trainer with winning fighter can make more in 6 months than most people make yearly." The offer represented everything Ronan had walked away from. Uncertainty, pressure, demands, but also something thought lost forever. Using his skills for more than survival, creating meaning while addressing practical realities. "I would need guarantees," he said slowly. "Ethan's treatment comes first, always, and Maya needs to understand what she's signing up for. Real training means rebuilding everything from ground up." "I'll do whatever it takes," Maya said with lifetime waiting conviction. The negotiation felt surreal in hospital context, but represented creative problem-solving missing from Ronan's life for years. Success would require sacrifices from everyone, but offered paths previously unimaginable. Training began the following week with methodical intensity. Early morning sessions became foundation while Ethan slept, and before Ronan's hospital shifts. These weren't casual gym sessions. They were precision instruments rebuilding Maya's boxing understanding from cellular level up. "Forget everything about throwing a right hand," Ronan told her during their 3rd session. "You're not trying to hurt the bag. You're trying to hurt someone who's trying to hurt you back." The transformation wasn't just technical, it was psychological. Maya began understanding boxing as conversation rather than monologue, dynamic interaction requiring reading and responding rather than executing predetermined combinations. "You've been fighting the fight you want," Ronan explained during sparring difficulties. "Winning means fighting the fight your opponent doesn't want. Every fighter has weaknesses, comfort zones, patterns. Your job is forcing them out of those patterns. Ethan started attending sessions, his curiosity about his father's work proving impossible to deny. What began as occasional visits became regular presence, changing everything's dynamic. "Why doesn't she move her head before punching?" Ethan asked, pointing out telegraphs Ronan had worked weeks to correct. "She's telling everyone what she'll do." Children's minds, uncluttered by limiting assumptions, sometimes identify solutions expertise overlooks. Ethan became unofficial assistant coach, his observations accelerating Maya's progress unexpectedly. The weeks leading to Golden Gloves became countdown measured in small victories and incremental improvements. Maya's technique refined through repetition, but more importantly, her self-understanding as fighter deepened. Financial pressure driving Ronan's initial coaching decision began easing as Maya's improvement attracted promoter attention. Exhibition matches offered immediate income supplementing other work, while Golden Glove's success promised larger opportunities. The night before Maya's first bout, reviewing strategy in empty gym, Ronan reflected on the journey bringing them here. 3 months earlier, he'd been invisible, maintenance worker whose past was known only to himself. Now he was being described as ghost trainer, whose methods generated speculation throughout Chicago's boxing community. "Are you nervous?" Maya asked, anxiety manifesting in reassurance-seeking questions. "About whether we've done enough? I'm nervous about things I can't control." Ronan admitted. "Judging, injuries, whether you'll access everything we've worked on under highest pressure. But I'm not nervous about whether you're ready. You're as ready as anyone could be." Golden Gloves morning dawned grey and cold, Chicago weather testing resolve rather than inspiring confidence. Maya had slept poorly, mind cycling through drilled combinations, but Ronan expected that. Great fighters were rarely calm before big fights. They were controlled, focused, ready to channel nervous energy into productive violence. The weigh-in passed without incident, but real test came seeing other fighters preparing. These weren't gym sparring partners. These were regional champions who had dedicated years to reaching this level. "Second thoughts?" Ronan asked quietly, watching Maya's opponent warming up with crisp, powerful combinations. Lisa Lightning Rodriguez had won regionally 3 consecutive times and was considered heavy favorite. "No second thoughts," Maya replied tensely. "Just recognition of how much work this will be. She's everything you said, fast, strong, experienced, but she's exactly what we planned for." Their strategy built around Maya's superior reach and refined defensive skills. Instead of matching Rodriguez's aggression, Maya would use movement and counterattacking to frustrate rhythm and force tactical boxing, favoring technique over conditioning. Ethan attended despite Ronan's concerns about exposing him to competitive boxing's intense atmosphere. The 8-year-old sat front row wearing Maya's custom t-shirt, his excitement counterbalancing adult anxiety filling the arena. When Maya's name was called, the 3 rounds became a masterclass in fighting versus boxing difference. Rodriguez applied immediate pressure, trying to overwhelm with sustained attack. But Maya had been prepared. Instead of meeting aggression with aggression, she moved, countered, systematically dismantling Rodriguez's game plan through superior ring generalship. First round was close, but those understanding boxing saw the developing pattern. Rodriguez worked harder for shots while Maya found openings with increasing frequency. Defensive skills Ronan drilled until automatic allowed Maya to avoid worst attacks while landing clean, scoring punches. By second round, the pattern was obvious. Rodriguez's conditioning, her greatest weapon, was being neutralized by Maya's superior efficiency. Every exchange saw Maya giving less than received, making Rodriguez work while creating easier openings. Final round showcased everything Maya learned during transformation from promising amateur to legitimate contender. Instead of coasting, she increased output, demonstrating finishing instinct champions require. When the bell rang, there was no doubt. Maya had won decisively, unanimously, establishing herself as legitimate force while validating Ronan's methods and demonstrating his knowledge remained relevant despite years away. The celebration felt both earned and surreal. Kaya's joy was infectious, Maya's satisfaction deeper, and Ethan's excitement pure. For Ronan, victory represented proof that skills developed during competitive career hadn't been lost, that knowledge could still create champions. Success brought changes none anticipated. Boxing community embraced Maya's success enthusiastically. Articles described her mysterious coach and training methods producing dramatic improvement. Promotional opportunities materialized with increasing frequency, but success also brought scrutiny, making Ronan uncomfortable. Reporters wanted interviews. Other fighters sought him out. 3 years of protective invisibility was being stripped away by achievement. "Dad," Ethan said one evening, "people at school talk about you now. They found your fighting videos. Mrs. Johnson asked if you'd speak to our class about perseverance." The request represented exactly the public engagement Ronan had avoided, but highlighted how his return affected not just his life, but Ethan's childhood experience. "What do you think?" Ronan asked, genuinely curious about his son's perspective on reshaping changes. "I think you should," Ethan replied after serious consideration. "Not because you're famous, but because you know things about not giving up that people need to hear. Besides, maybe other kids won't feel bad about their parents being different." The observation revealed how thoughtfully Ethan processed their unusual circumstances, finding strength in what others might see as limitations. Decision to accept public engagements marked turning point in Ronan's approach. Instead of maintaining separation between fighter past and father present, he began integrating identities into something new, a coach whose methods were informed by both competitive experience and personal understanding of what mattered when everything was at stake. As Maya's success attracted professional promoter attention, conversations involved contracts and career planning extending far beyond regional competitions. Ronan served not just as trainer but mentor and advisor, his experience with both success and sacrifice providing unique insight. "The Thompson Promotions offer is generous," he told Maya and Kaya during strategy session, reviewing contracts promising significant money for exclusive promotional rights. "But generous doesn't always mean smart. Professional boxing is full of fighters who signed lucrative deals that ultimately limited careers." "What would you do?" Maya asked, trusting his judgment. "If you were my age, with my opportunities, I'd take the smaller deal with more control," he said after consideration. "Build reputation slowly, maintain decision ownership, never sign anything preventing you from walking away when costs exceed benefits. The goal isn't just making money fighting, it's using fighting to build the life you actually want." As Maya's national championship approached and higher-level competition pressure intensified, Ronan drew on every experience aspect. As fighter, father, someone who learned to find meaning in sacrifice. "Boxing taught me you can't control what happens to you," he told her during particularly difficult preparation. "But you can always control how you respond. That's true in the ring and everywhere else." 6 months later, Maya Chen stood in Madison Square Garden preparing for professional debut against former world title contender. The arena packed with 15,000 who came to see the young fighter whose rapid rise captured boxing world attention. For Ronan, only person who mattered was 8-year-old Ethan sitting front row wearing Team Maya t-shirt. Ethan's latest medical reports were the best in 2 years. Condition stabilized, treatment reduced to maintenance levels, allowing something approaching normal childhood. Maya's career success provided not just financial security, but access to specialized medical care, making the difference between managing illness and potentially overcoming it entirely. The fight lasted 7 rounds, ending when Maya's opponent's corner stopped the contest after systematic outboxing by someone whose technical skills had been forged in Ronan's demanding training environment. Victory established Maya as legitimate contender while validating transformation methods. For Ronan, real victory came when Maya climbed from the ring and immediately sought Ethan, lifting him onto her shoulders in celebration while Madison Square Garden roared approval. The image captured something transcending sports accomplishment, speaking to deeper connections, making achievement meaningful. The offers following victory represented unimaginable opportunities. Television networks, major promoters, equipment companies sought deals. But perhaps most significant came from United States Olympic Committee. Impressed by Maya's development and extending national team training invitation with eye toward next Olympics. "What do you think?" Maya asked Ronan, considering Olympic opportunity. "Is it worth postponing professional opportunities for Olympic dreams?" "What do you want your legacy to be?" he asked in return. Money and professional titles are important, but they're not the only success measures. Sometimes most valuable achievements inspire others to attempt things they thought impossible. Maya chose the Olympic path, requiring all of them to commit to several more demanding years. But the choice felt right in ways transcending practical considerations. It honored their journey while pointing toward achievements justifying all sacrifices. Standing in the gym where their story began, watching Maya work through combinations carrying her toward Olympic competition while Ethan did homework nearby, Ronan understood he had found something more valuable than individual achievement, a way to live integrating all different aspects of himself into coherent whole. The mop and cleaning cart remained in corner, reminders of where this journey started and humility making transformation possible, but they also served as symbols of how completely life could change when skill met opportunity, when sacrifice created space for second chances, and when courage to help others pursue dreams opened seemingly permanently closed doors. The ghost had returned to the ring, not as competitor seeking personal glory, but as guide helping others find their way to achievements outlasting any individual career. In choosing to step back into light, Roman Hale discovered that most profound victories often come not from what we accomplish for ourselves, but from what we make possible for those following in our footsteps.